Well, to understand the study, I think some background is useful, right? So companies, especially high-tech companies, are facing two important trends. One is that technology development is increasingly more complex, so they have to partner with other companies more and more, right, to do R&D alliances and things like that. The other one is that technology and ideas and markets are more globalized than ever, so firms are not just having to do partnerships, but international partnerships. So you see companies involved in these global R&D networks. Now, this can be very good, but it also creates a bit of a dilemma for companies. Because on the one hand, if you think about it, if you have partners from all over the world and you're exposed to new ideas, new ways of doing things, new business systems, that can help you be very innovative. On the other hand, though, you also have to manage a much more complex network. So you have to deal with cultural differences, legal differences, institutional differences, you name it, right? And so think, of a pharmaceutical company, and it has partners in the United States and Germany, Japan, China, India. That sounds like a promising network in terms of innovation, but it's also complex to manage. So against that backdrop, we really asked a very simple question. We thought, well, there must be kind of an optimal mix of domestic and foreign partners in your network and how that affects your innovation. Okay, so if you think of the most basic unit of a network, which is a simple triad of firms where I'm the firm and I have two partners, there's essentially three basic configurations. Everyone can be foreign, everyone from a different country. That's an all-foreign triad. Or you can think of everyone being from the same country, that's all domestic, or a mix of foreign and domestic. So our question was simply, out of these three, which one is best for innovation? And to do that, we had some data from the life sciences or biotechnology industry involving companies from 57 different countries, and we studied the types and amount of patents that they produced from those partnerships. So the key takeaway is that it really depends on what kind of innovation you are trying to produce. So when it comes to innovations that we call radical, these are innovations that are path-breaking, they really break from the status quo in terms of the knowledge of the industry. Those innovations were most strongly associated with the all-foreign partnerships, with the all-foreign networks, not with the all-domestic and not with the ones that have a mix of foreign and domestic. In contrast, if you're going to produce what we call an impactful innovation, so this is an innovation that's more incremental, it's still economically valuable, but kind of preserves the status quo in terms of knowledge, those were associated with having all-domestic network partners in the R&D alliances, not with all foreign or with the mix of foreign and domestic. And the other interesting thing is that these general patterns hold even if we account for the ways in which countries are different. So think of cultural differences or institutional differences or anything like that. So in a nutshell, I think what it tells you is that if you're a manager that's in charge of global R&D, and especially global R&D partnerships, you have to be aware of the entire network and the mix of foreign and domestic partners and how that's affecting the types of innovations you produce and the efficiency with which you can produce innovation. And I say that because when I talk to managers, often I see that firms are very good at what I call the dyadic level. They're very good at when they're going to form a partnership, screening that partner, making sure that they trust that partner brings something new. But managers typically don't look beyond the dyad to consider the entire network and how the configuration, especially the global configuration, may affect how innovative they are and what they're getting out of those partnerships. The other interesting and practical thing is that it seems like you really have to commit. So you either have to commit to sort of the all-foreign or all-domestic, and this kind of mix of foreign and domestic partners isn't producing much for firms. And of course, that depends on what you expect to get out. If you're going for the home run radical innovations, it's really, you get that out of the foreign partnerships. And if you're going for more the incremental, profitable type of innovations, then those are going to come more from your domestic partnerships. Well, I think a general statement is that the science of networks has advanced a lot in the last 20 years, mathematically and in a lot of other ways. What's interesting is that there's a gap between what we know about networks purely and how networks and globalization relate to one another. But the paradox, of course, is that we see that firms are involved more and more in global networks. So I would like to close that gap a little bit. So for example, the study I just described tells us about the consequences or the outcomes of what you might get from international versus domestic networks. A natural follow-up is to see if firms are doing something in their network formation behaviors, right? Do they account for differences across countries? Do they account for the global pattern of partnerships and the way they structure their relationships, particularly when it comes to seeking for innovation and new ideas and knowledge? The other thing that I think is important is just to understand not just if you're getting different things out of your networks, but what are the underlying processes, right? Why is it that it's hard to manage foreign partnerships? And what can managers do to make that process more efficiency, to overcome all those frictions in terms of culture and institutions and just the basic differences across countries, to make these foreign partnerships that seem to be so valuable function more efficiently?